Welcome back to a new video. On today's episode, we're taking a look at MiddleEarth Shadow of War, the sequel to the sleeper hit that was Shadow of Mordor that released towards the end of 2014 from the developers of Monolith. For those that don't know, the game is an open world action role-playing game set in the Lord of the Rings universe after The Hobbit but before the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Following on from the first game, you play as Talion, who has the spirit of an elf lord called Celebrimbor inside of him. Shadow of War has Talion and Celebrimbor attempt to forge a new ring of power to amass an army and take down Sauron. To quickly recap from the first game, Talion and his family were killed by the Black Hand of Sauron at the beginning of the game, except Talion didn't exactly die. He kind of exists in between the living and the dead and meets the spirit of Celebrimbor, who also happens to have amnesia. Celebrimbor uses Talion as a vessel and explains they are bound by a curse and must defeat the Black Hand to undo it. However, without spoiling any of the plot, wasn't exactly the whole truth. The gameplay in Shadow of War is kind of a mix between Assassin's Creed and the Batman Arkham games, and with it being an open world, there are plenty of story missions to play through, side missions, and collectibles to keep you occupied. What arguably made the first game so stand out, however, and kept people invested for so long, was the Nemesis system where you can track Uruks, an elite form of orc, and try to eliminate them. Lose an encounter with an Uruk and they would get stronger, making your next bout with them even tougher, meaning you'll need to better yourself and utilise their weaknesses if you have any hope of winning. It was a great feature and was extremely satisfying to finally beat an Uruk who had taunted you and defeated you a number of times previously. In Shadow of War, the system has been expanded. For starters, you can import from Shadow of Mordor your strongest nemesis and ally into the game if you wish to. The biggest new addition to the system are nemesis fortresses that has an overlord, and you'll have to plan your attack carefully along with your own group of followers you've built up during the course of the game if you want to succeed in taking control of them. Upon defeating an overlord, you can set your own overlord that will shape the fortress and surrounding area quite drastically depending on your choice, as there are a number of different orc tribes in the game now. Also, whereas before war chiefs had strengths and weaknesses you would need to take into consideration, now as you fight they can adapt your style and force you to change it in order to beat them. So if you are using a lot of ranged attacks, they may become invulnerable to them, adding an extra layer of strategy into fights. Before I forget, there is additionally a form of online mode where you can tackle other players' fortresses in either friendly or ranked. In ranked, if a follower dies or stay dead, you can earn some loot from your victories. The mode looks like a great way to add some longevity to the game once you've captured all the fortresses in the single player. However, you have to be on your toes to keep those fortresses you worked so hard for, as in the endgame there is a potential for them to be taken back, where you have to fight waves of enemies in order to stop them. Die and of course you'll lose control of that fortress and also the region. The original game came out relatively early in the current generation and also released for the last gen as well, which inevitably held back the PS4, Xbox One and PC versions. Although in 2016 the game did get a PS4 Pro patch, allowed it to run at an almost constant native 4K and looked pretty incredible. Shadow of War on the other hand is being developed purely for the current gen, which should mean less limitations. Not to mention both games are being developed with the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X in mind, with the PS4 Pro version running at an upscaled 4K and the Xbox One version running at native 4K. Both versions will also make use of HDR that on the right display should look great. The game drops very soon on the 10th of October and is also part of the Play Anywhere scheme, meaning if you purchase the PC version digitally, you'll be able to play the Xbox One version with no additional costs and vice versa. It's difficult to talk about the game without covering some of the controversial aspects that surrounded it since its announcement. Microtransactions are making their way into the sequel, something that didn't exist in the original, and although microtransactions are becoming more and more prevalent in games of today, mostly in multiplayer games, the lines of acceptability of them are rather blurred, with many having issue with them being added into single player games especially. You'll have the option to purchase gold, one of the forms of in-game currency with real money, and then can use it for different chests that can contain random items and followers or XP boosts. These can all be earned in-game, however many are worried that the game will make earning enough through regular play for these loot chests very difficult in an attempt to make these seemingly optional microtransactions feel more obligatory without ridiculous grinding, and feeling very much pay to win. Although the developers have assured us this won't be the case. The second point of controversy surrounds the death of one of its employees who sadly lost their life to cancer. They had the idea of immortalising him within the game as an orc that you pay $5 to unlock, with the donations going to the family, which doesn't sound like something to be angry about. However, when you delve a little deeper, many were concerned. Only payments made within 43 states of the US would be donated, meaning if someone like myself purchased a DLC who lives in the UK, the money wouldn't go to the family, even though it wasn't made explicitly clear this is the case, only in the fine print. Warner Bros. Games have since made a statement that they feel the way they went about it was a mistake, with the DLC still going ahead except now free of charge, and will also be donating money directly to the family from themselves, which I think was the right thing to do and does, at least in my opinion, smooth things over and remove any concern in that regard. Let me know if you'll be picking up Shadow of War come October 10th. Despite some clear controversy, I think the game will be very enjoyable and at least matches the original, yet whether we should be supporting the practices of microtransactions in this form is something that maybe people want to take into consideration before purchasing, as it remains to be seen how much it will affect the game at this point. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give a like, and if you are new around here, maybe think about subscribing to see future content from myself just like this. Click the thumbnail on the left for the last episode, or the one on the right for another of my videos. Thanks for watching as usual, and I'll see you on the next video.